My name is Zeeshan and I'm 33 years old. When I was 11 years old, I remember sitting at the edge of the dining table while my father counted out rent money in front of relatives, and my uncle laughed and said, "This family will never really get ahead, will it?" My father didn't answer. He just kept counting, quietly, his ears turning red. I remember thinking, even at 11, that I never wanted to be counted out loud like that in front of a room full of people. For 15 years, from the time I was 18, I worked toward one simple goal: never letting money be something people whispered about behind my back. I took a warehouse job at 18, stacking pallets in the cold storage section for minimum wage, and studied logistics at night after 10-hour shifts, falling asleep more than once with a textbook still open on my chest. By 24, I had started a small freight brokerage with a single laptop and a borrowed desk in the corner of a friend's office, the kind of desk with a wobbly leg I fixed with a folded napkin because I couldn't justify spending money on a new one yet. It wasn't glamorous. For the first 3 years, I barely paid myself a real salary, eating the same 3 meals on rotation just to keep the business accounts healthy. There were nights I sat in that borrowed office until 11 p.m., staring at spreadsheets, wondering if I was fooling myself. But by 30, the business was stable enough that I could finally breathe, and for the first time in my adult life, money stopped being the thing that kept me awake at night. The one person who never treated my quiet, careful approach to money as something to mock was my wife, Sana. Sana is 30, a high school teacher, calm and grounded in a way I didn't grow up around. She keeps a small jar of coins on our kitchen counter labeled "Someday Trip," and every few weeks she adds whatever change is left over from groceries, not because we need it, but because she likes the ritual of small, steady progress. When my business nearly collapsed during a bad year 4 years ago, and I had to lay off 2 employees I genuinely liked, Sana never once brought up our savings account as a source of blame. I remember sitting across from her at our small dining table, the lights dimmed to save on the electricity bill that month, bracing myself for panic or frustration. Instead, she reached across the table, took my hand, and simply said, "We'll figure it out together," and meant it. That kind of steadiness was new to me, and I built the rest of my adult life around protecting it, the same way my father once tried, and failed, to protect his own dignity at that dinner table years ago. My older brother, Bilal, has always measured success differently than I do. He's 36, works in regional sales for a mid-sized electronics company, drives a newer car than mine, and posts about vacations online with captions about manifesting abundance. Growing up, Bilal was always the one our relatives pointed to first, the one with the sharper suits and the louder laugh at family gatherings, while I was usually described, kindly enough, as the quiet one. I never minded the label until it started being used as a weapon. 3 years ago, our father took out a loan to cover unexpected medical costs after a small heart procedure, co-signed by Bilal, since he was the one with a more impressive job title at the time, even though his finances were far shakier underneath the surface than anyone realized. Bilal had a habit of upgrading his car every 2 years and hosting elaborate birthday parties for his kids that, privately, made Sana and me wince at the cost. Then, 12 days before this year's Eid dinner, at a small family gathering at my aunt's house, Bilal made a comment that changed everything. The room smelled like cardamom tea and fried samosas, the television murmuring quietly in the background with a cricket match no one was really watching. Standing near the dessert table, in front of nearly a dozen relatives, plate of gulab jamun in hand, he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Some of us actually contribute to this family." Zeeshan's been quiet about money for years because there isn't much to talk about. A few relatives laughed uncomfortably, the kind of laugh that fills a silence rather than expresses real amusement. My aunt shot him a look and set her teacup down a little harder than necessary, but no one corrected him out loud. I stood there near the window, coffee cup in hand, saying nothing, feeling the warmth drain slightly from my face, feeling 11 years old again, watching someone get counted out loud in front of a room. Underneath Bilal's comment was something smaller than arrogance, fear. I found out later, through my mother, that Bilal had quietly missed 2 payments on our father's loan that month, and was terrified our parents would find out he wasn't as financially solid as he appeared. Painting me as the broke one was, in some strange way, a way of making sure no one looked too closely at his own numbers. Here's what Bilal didn't know. 2 years earlier, quietly, without any announcement, I had set aside a dedicated savings fund specifically to help pay down our father's loan early, once my business stabilized. I opened it the same week my father mentioned, almost in passing, how much the monthly installments were weighing on him, and I never mentioned the fund to anyone except Sanaa, because I didn't want it to become a performance or something I dangled in front of the family for approval. Every few months, I quietly transferred a fixed amount into that account, the same way my father once counted coins at that dinner table, except this time the counting was private, and it was building towards something instead of just surviving the month. By the time of that Eid dinner comment, the fund had grown enough to cover the entire remaining loan balance in a single payment. I had also already spoken privately with the bank 2 months earlier to confirm the exact payoff amount down to the last rupee, just in case I ever needed to move quickly. I didn't respond to Bilal that night. I wanted to be sure I handled it calmly, not out of anger, not to prove a point in the moment. Over the next 9 days, I finalized the paperwork with the bank and withdrew the payoff amount in cash, exactly as our father had always preferred to handle large family matters, out of an old habit from years of watching relatives gossip about bank transfers. Then came the complication I hadn't expected. My mother called me privately, worried. "Please don't make a scene at Eid dinner," she said. "Your father is proud. If you hand him cash in front of everyone, it might embarrass him, not help him." For one evening, I doubted my plan entirely. I wondered if a quiet, private gesture really was better than anything public. Sanaa, calm as always, said, "There's a difference between embarrassing someone and finally telling the truth in the open." That settled something in me. Eid dinner arrived on a warm evening at my parents' house, nearly 20 relatives gathered around 2 long tables pushed together, mismatched chairs pulled in from 3 different rooms, the smell of biryani and grilled kebabs filling the house, string lights wrapped loosely around the patio railing outside, casting a soft amber glow over the tablecloth. Children ran between the tables while the adults settled into the comfortable noise of a full house. Bilal sat near the head of the table, comfortable, retelling a story about a recent trip to the coast, his voice a little louder than it needed to be, occasionally glancing my way with the same faint smugness from the aunt's house gathering. My father sat quietly at the far end, nodding along to conversations, the way he always did at these gatherings, present but rarely at the center of attention. After dinner, as dessert was being served, I stood up quietly, holding a plain envelope. "Before we finish tonight," I said, "I want to take care of something for Baba." Bilal chuckled slightly. "What, you bought him a gift?" "No," I said calmly, placing the envelope in front of my father. "This is the full remaining balance on your loan, paid in cash tonight. It's done. You don't owe anything else." The table went quiet. My father opened the envelope slowly, his hands trembling slightly as he counted through it, recognizing the exact amount from years of watching the loan statements. My mother's hand went to her chest. Bilal's smile faded into something tighter, more uncertain. "I've been managing that loan," Bilal said quickly, glancing around the table. "I know," I said, my voice staying even. "I've had this fund ready for 2 years. I wasn't looking to embarrass anyone. I just didn't want Baba carrying this any longer than he had to." My aunt, the same one from the earlier gathering, looked directly at Bilal, her expression unreadable. My father's eyes were wet, though he said nothing for a long moment. Bilal opened his mouth once, then closed it, staring down at his plate. No comeback came, just silence, and the faint sound of the string lights buzzing overhead, and somewhere in the distance, a car alarm briefly going off before falling silent again. In the weeks that followed, my father insisted on treating the payment as a loan between us rather than a gift, sitting me down at that same dining table where he once counted coins, this time to sketch out a modest repayment schedule on a napkin, mostly symbolic, mostly for his own sense of dignity, and I agreed without argument because I understood what it meant to him. I didn't correct Bilal publicly again after that night, and I didn't bring up his missed payments to anyone, even though I now knew about them. A week later, I called Bilal privately, just the two of us on the phone, and offered to help him set up a simple budgeting system, quietly, without our parents knowing, framing it as something practical rather than a correction. He was quiet for a long moment before he said, simply, "Yeah, okay," which, from Bilal, was as close to gratitude as I expected to get. I never wanted to become someone who used one good moment as a weapon against my own brother going forward. 2 months later, our family dinners feel different, lighter somehow. My father brings up the loan sometimes, half joking, saying he'll pay me back with interest, just to annoy you, and we both laugh in a way that feels easier than it used to. Bilal and I aren't as close as I'd like, but the comments have stopped. Sana says she's noticed I stand a little taller now at family gatherings, not from pride, but from something closer to relief. If there's one thing this taught me, it's that you don't have to explain yourself loudly to people who've already decided what they think of you. I spent 15 years being quiet about money because I was terrified of being counted out loud the way my father once was. In the end, I didn't need to raise my voice or defend myself in the moment. I just needed to be ready when it mattered. If you've ever sat quietly while someone painted an unfair picture of you in front of people you love, I want you to know that you don't owe anyone a loud defense. Sometimes the truth is better shown calmly, in its own time, than argued about in the moment. If this story meant something to you, consider subscribing. Every story here is for someone who needed to hear it, maybe tonight, maybe the next time someone tries to count them out loud in a room full of family.